Sophia Loren has faced scandal, war, and heartbreak. She has survived courtroom battles, media storms, and the chaos of global fame. But there is one moment from her past she still refuses to face. One scene she filmed in 1960 that she has never watched. Not once in more than 60 years. It was the performance that won her an Academy Award. Critics called it haunting. Viewers were stunned. And yet, Loren has avoided it ever since, calling it too painful and too personal. The scene in question is brutal, devastating. A moment so raw, so real, it blurred the line between acting and memory. What the cameras captured was not just a performance, it was a woman unraveling in real time. But why has Sophia Loren never watched it? What made this scene different from the dozens of roles she took on before and after? The answer was hidden behind the camera. It started with a decision she made on set, one that changed the script, her role, and possibly the course of her entire life. Because what happened next was never supposed to happen at all. It was supposed to be just another dramatic moment in a war film. A tragic climax, yes, but still fiction. Yet when the cameras rolled on the most devastating scene in Two Women, the entire crew fell silent. Something about it felt wrong. Not in the way it was shot, but in how real it looked, how real it sounded, and most of all, how real Sophia Loren seemed as she crumbled on screen. In the scene, Loren's character, Caesara, and her teenage daughter are assaulted by a group of soldiers in an abandoned church. There is no music, no soft lighting, just screams, struggle, and silence. When the chaos ends, Caesara does not cry. She does not scream. She stares, hollow, frozen, and the camera lingers, refusing to look away. For many viewers, the moment was unbearable. For Sophia Loren, it was something else entirely. She later confessed she was not playing that role. She was remembering, feeling, reliving something buried so deep it had never fully healed. What most people did not know was that Loren had not been cast in that role originally. She was supposed to play the daughter, the victim, but she pushed for the role of mother, even though it made her 10 years too young for the part. The director, Vittorio De Sica, was hesitant at first, but she insisted, not for vanity or for screen time, but because she wanted to prove something, that she could go deeper, that she could do more than charm and seduce. But no one, not even Loren herself, expected the emotional toll it would take. The set, already tense from the subject matter, became quieter each day that scene drew closer. And when the moment finally arrived, something shifted. The actors broke down between takes. Even the crew avoided eye contact. When it was over, De Sica called it the most harrowing moment he had ever filmed. Sophia Loren never watched it again. She could not. In her own words, "I gave everything I had to that scene, and I left a piece of myself there." For her, it was not just acting. It was exposure. It was fear. And most haunting of all, it was familiar. But the truth behind that familiarity did not start on set. It started in the streets of Pozzuoli, years before she ever stepped in front of a camera. Before Sophia Loren became a screen goddess, she was just a skinny girl from Pozzuoli, hungry and humiliated. She was not born into fame or wealth. She was born into chaos. Her real name was Sofia Villani Sticolone. She came into the world in 1934, just as Italy was sinking into political unrest and war. Her father abandoned the family almost immediately, refusing to marry her mother or even give Sophia his last name. That single decision marked her from the start as illegitimate, unwanted, and poor. During the Second World War, Sophia lived with her mother and sister in a cramped apartment just outside Naples. They shared one room with her grandmother and a few relatives, often surviving on little more than bread crusts and boiled water. Sophia's memories of those years were filled with air raid sirens, broken glass, and the sound of bombs falling around their home. Sometimes they would have to run barefoot to underground shelters in the middle of the night, ducking through rubble and blackened streets. One of those bombs struck so close that Sophia was knocked to the ground, slicing open her chin. The scar stayed with her for life. A physical reminder of a time when survival was a daily question, not a guarantee. But the emotional wounds ran deeper. Sophia later admitted that growing up fatherless in a town full of gossip and judgment, shaped how she saw herself. She was mocked at school, called names, treated like an outsider in her own country, and her beauty, which would later become her greatest weapon, was slow to develop. She was painfully thin, sickly, and often called toothpick by other children. In many ways, she was Sisera long before the film Two Women was ever written. She had already known hunger, humiliation, and the fear of being powerless. And when it came time to film the church scene, that brutal climax, she did not have to dig very far to find the emotion. It was already there. She had lived it. Sophia once said that acting, for her, was never about pretending. It was about remembering. And when she broke down on camera in Two Women, it was not just for the character she was playing, it was for the girl she used to be. The one who ran barefoot from bomb raids, shaking with fear, praying to be invisible. But what came after that scene would prove even harder, because the role that brought her an Oscar nearly cost her peace of mind forever. By the time Two Women went into production in 1960, Sophia Loren was already an international star. She had worked with giants like Cary Grant and Clark Gable, posed for photographers around the globe, and been crowned Italy's most iconic export since pasta. She was glamorous, sharp, and famously composed. But none of that prepared her for what she would face on the set of that film. Originally, the role of Sisera, the mother, was meant for someone older. Sophia had been cast as the daughter, a teenage girl caught in the destruction of war. But the more she read the script, the more something unsettled her. She saw too much of herself in the mother, not just emotionally, but physically. She had lived through war. She had watched her own mother suffer in silence. And now she felt drawn, almost pulled, toward the part of Sisera. She fought for the role, even though it meant giving up a part designed to show her youth and beauty. When director Vittorio De Sica finally gave in, he warned her this would not be easy. And he was right. Two Women was not a glamorous war film. It was raw, gritty, unforgiving. Sisera was not elegant or seductive. She was desperate, exhausted, and terrified. Every scene stripped Sophia of the image she had so carefully built. Gone were the dazzling gowns, the red carpets, and the witty one-liners. In their place were blood, dirt, and long silences filled with pain. But it was that church scene, the one no one talked about on set, that nearly broke her. Filming it was like opening a locked door in her own mind. The fear, the helplessness, the rage, it all came flooding back. She later admitted she was not thinking about the script at all during that moment. She was thinking about her mother, about the war, about what could have happened to them if luck had not been on their side. After filming wrapped, Sophia said she felt hollow, empty, like something had been pulled out of her and never put back. She could not sleep, she could not eat, and she refused to talk about what had happened on set. Even as the film was being edited and screened, she stayed away. She told friends that watching it felt impossible. But when the film finally premiered, something unexpected happened. Audiences wept. Critics hailed her as a revelation. And then came the moment no one saw coming. Sophia Loren, the woman who had once been called just another pretty face, became the first actor to win an Academy Award for a foreign language performance. Still, she would not watch it, not even after the Oscar, not after the accolades, not even decades later, because something about that scene went deeper than art. It touched a part of her soul she had spent a lifetime trying to keep hidden. And the director who pulled that performance from her, he had his own secrets and his own way of pushing actors past their breaking point. Vittorio De Sica was no ordinary director. He was a master of Italian neorealism, a movement known for stripping cinema down to its rawest form. His films captured poverty, pain, and survival in a way that felt more like real life than performance. And for Two Women, he wanted something more than acting. He wanted truth. Sophia Loren was already a seasoned actress when she stepped onto his set, but De Sica treated this film differently from anything she had experienced before. He refused to rehearse the church scene in full. He kept the crew small, the lighting harsh, and the atmosphere unbearably tense. Everyone on set could feel it. Something heavy was coming. And De Sica made sure that Sophia was carrying all of it. He had one rule: no pretending. If she wanted to deliver the performance, she had to live it. He asked her to think of her mother during takes, to remember what it felt like to run from bombs, to picture the fear she had felt as a child, clutching her younger sister while the walls shook and the skies burned. He was not trying to manipulate her, not exactly, but he was asking her to bleed. And Sophia, determined to prove herself, gave him everything. Years later, crew members would describe the set as emotionally dangerous. One assistant cameraman admitted he left the church set during filming. He could not stomach what he was witnessing. Even the other actors, seasoned professionals, were shaken. They said Sophia's eyes looked different during that scene, vacant, distant, almost haunted. Some actresses might have walked away, others might have shut down, but Sophia stayed. She was proud, disciplined, and used to discomfort. Yet what Desika demanded was more than discomfort. It was excavation. He unearthed every memory she had tried to suppress. And when it was over, he told her she had changed the face of cinema. He may have been right. The performance was unforgettable, but the emotional cost was staggering. Sophia stopped speaking to people for days after filming ended. Her mother, who had visited the set during production, was so disturbed by what she saw that she asked Sophia never to take on a role like that again. And even after all that, Sophia refused to blame Desika. She admired him, respected him, but she never worked with him again on anything so personal. And she never watched that scene. Still, Desika's influence stayed with her, because two women did not just change her career, it opened the floodgates. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about Sophia Loren's past, but the story they uncovered was even darker than what they saw on screen. When Two Women premiered in Italy, critics called it a masterpiece. Audiences were stunned into silence. The performance was so raw that some wondered if it had gone too far. But the film only gained more momentum. It swept international festivals, stunned the Academy, and secured Sophia Loren a place in history. She had become the first actor to win an Oscar for a foreign-language role. Yet behind the curtain, she was unraveling. In interviews, Sophia smiled. She thanked the Academy. She posed for cameras in elegant gowns. But when asked about that scene, the one that had everyone talking, she gave short, carefully worded answers. Sometimes, she would change the subject entirely. Other times, her voice would falter for just a second before she composed herself again. She told one interviewer, years later, "I am proud of that role. Yes, but I will never watch it. Not ever. Some things are better left untouched." Privately, she struggled. Friends noticed she had become withdrawn, quieter than usual. She canceled appearances, skipped press events, and avoided screenings. One former publicist even said that Sophia kept the Oscar in a box under her bed for months before displaying it. "It did not feel like a victory," she reportedly said. "It felt like a wound." The industry noticed too. After Two Women, offers flooded in. Directors wanted her to recreate the magic, play more broken women, more tragedies, more war-torn stories. But Sophia turned most of them down. She pivoted back to romantic comedies and dramas, roles that felt lighter, easier to carry. She had no intention of reopening that door, but the silence only fueled speculation. Why was she so protective over one film? Why would an artist at the height of her power refuse to acknowledge her own most celebrated performance? Rumors began to swirl. Some said the scene had triggered post-traumatic stress from her childhood during the war. Others whispered about a deeper, more personal reason, one that had nothing to do with acting at all. Italian tabloids dug through her past. Biographers tiptoed around certain subjects, and gradually, a theory began to take shape. Maybe the reason Sophia never watched the scene is because it was never just a scene to her. Maybe it echoed something she had lived through or witnessed long before she was ever famous. She never confirmed any of it, never denied it either. She simply stayed silent. And sometimes, silence is the loudest answer of all. For decades, Sophia Loren's silence about Two Women left room for rumors to grow. And one of the most persistent whispers came not from Hollywood, but from Italy itself. According to multiple Italian-language biographies and interviews with people close to her, there may be more to her reaction than just the trauma of acting, something darker, something buried in her family's past. During World War II, the town of Pozzuoli was not just poor, it was dangerous. With the Allied invasion, German retreat, and collapsing social order, chaos ruled the streets. Women were often left to fend for themselves. The horrors of war did not always come from bombs. Sometimes, they came in the form of what two women depicted so brutally: assaults that went unpunished and unspoken. In her own memoir, Sophia never explicitly detailed anything involving herself or her family, but she did describe living in fear. She wrote of women screaming in the night, of mothers clutching daughters tightly when unfamiliar men walked by, of hiding in stairwells when soldiers came through the town. One biographer claimed that Sophia's mother, Romilda, had hinted at a traumatic family incident during that time, something they would never speak of again. The suggestion was vague, the wording careful, but it lined up eerily with the events portrayed in Two Women. There are also reports that when Sophia first read the script, she burst into tears, not because of the writing, but because, as one assistant on set later recalled, she said it reminded her of someone she knew. The assistant did not press further. No one did. The atmosphere was too tense, and Sophia was known for drawing a hard line between her personal life and her public image. Years later, when asked whether she identified more with the mother or the daughter in the film, she said simply, "Both, and neither." It is a story that belongs to all women who have lived through war. But one Italian journalist, who spent years researching her early life, once made a chilling observation. He said, "When an actor avoids watching their own performance, it's usually because of shame." In Sophia's case, it looked more like grief. And maybe that is the truth. Maybe the church scene in Two Women felt less like fiction and more like a reflection, not of something she experienced directly, but something that hovered over her childhood like a shadow, something witnessed, something unspoken, and something she never wanted to see again, even if it was only on a screen. Whatever the truth is, Sophia has never addressed these rumors publicly. She has never confirmed them, but she has never denied them either. And with each passing year, her silence continues to deepen the mystery. For most actors, one film does not define a lifetime. But for Sophia Loren, Two Women became the role that followed her, whether she wanted it to or not. The film was praised around the world. It earned standing ovations at Cannes, shocked American audiences, and caught the attention of critics who had previously dismissed Loren as little more than a beauty icon. After years of being typecast as the sultry, flirtatious leading lady, she was suddenly being compared to dramatic legends. And for the first time, even the most skeptical corners of Hollywood acknowledged what Italian cinema had known for years: Sophia Loren could act. But the irony was bitter, because the performance that earned her the world's respect also became the one she could never speak about. She refused to screen the film at retrospectives. When asked to revisit the role in documentaries or tributes, she politely declined. At award shows, clips from Two Women were almost never shown, unless she was not in attendance. When she wrote her autobiography, Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, she included the film, of course. It had to be there, but she kept the chapter brief, clinical even. She talked about winning the Oscar, about De Sica's brilliance, about the chaos of filming. But when it came to the church scene, her tone changed. The warmth vanished. The words grew sparse. "I gave everything I had," she wrote, "and then I moved on." Still, the industry never forgot. Directors referenced Two Women for decades as a benchmark for emotional realism. Film schools studied her performance frame by frame, and younger actresses cited that scene as proof that beauty did not have to come at the cost of depth. Her silence only made it more powerful. That one role carried a kind of sacred weight, an untouchable legend. But the film's legacy was not just artistic. It had a ripple effect on how war stories were told in cinema. Before Two Women, very few films had shown what happened to civilian women during conflict: the trauma, the fear, the survival. Sophia's performance opened the door for more brutal, honest portrayals of women's experiences in wartime. And though she never claimed credit for starting that shift, she was undeniably at its center. To this day, Two Women is considered one of the greatest performances in film history, not just because it was convincing, but because it felt lived in, raw, unfiltered, human. And yet, Even as the accolades piled up, Sophia Loren continued to keep the film at arm's length. No matter how many tributes, honors, or awards she received, she never allowed herself to watch the scene. Not even once, because for her, the legacy was never about glory. It was about what it cost.